Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Chelsea and in today's video I'm going to be sharing my breastfeeding experience. I'm so happy to be recording. My daughter is outside with her dad and I was like, bye, see ya, I'm gonna record a video. I've wanted to record this for a long time and yeah, I'm going to be sharing my breastfeeding experience thus far. So I am nearly 13 weeks postpartum and I always knew that I wanted to breastfeed. Before I go any further, actually, let me just say a trigger warning. I'm going to be talking about weight loss and also mental health. So if you feel that you're in a space where you can't listen to stuff that relates to that right now, then maybe just switch off and come back, or don't come back. It's up to you. But yeah, I always knew that I wanted to breastfeed because I read about the benefits and how it's good for me but also good for the baby. So I was like, yeah, this sounds, I feel like I went into it a bit naive. This sounds easy, dare I say easy. This is what I thought beforehand and it's gonna, you know, just gonna work out. I did do a breastfeeding course before I gave birth by latch GB, and I want to say that it was good in terms of helping me understand how breastfeeding works. However, I feel like I could have done with a bit more reality of how breastfeeding actually is, and that's what I'm going to share today. I'm going to share my story. Obviously my story is different to another woman's story, and if I do decide to have another baby, it could be a whole new different experience as well. So yeah, these views are all my own. This is my experience. I'm just sharing it to encourage anyone and to just give a real experience of how my journey has been. So my daughter was born, she latched on straight away and she breastfed. So I'm taking it back to the beginning and I'm going to bring it up to where we are now. So yeah, she latched on straight away, fed for 45 minutes, and then after that, obviously I had just given birth, so I was like I was exhausted, to be honest, I'm not going to lie, but I was really happy that she latched. It was a bit, actually it wasn't painful. I was getting stitched up, so that was more painful than the breastfeeding. I don't even remember. I just remember her like drinking like she hadn't ate for days. And I was like, okay, this is cool. We put her in her little cot thing and we were just like staring at her and trying to process the fact that we had the longest labour ever. And then we went to the ward. So by the time we got to the ward, it had been like 6 hours since she had first latched on. Obviously as a first time mum, I didn't know that, I don't know, I don't even know how often you're meant to feed the baby. I just thought when they cry, you maybe see if they're hungry or not. So my husband and I were just chilling and we got into the ward. This is like my first sort of experience, which wasn't really great if I'm going to be honest. Someone came in and was like, when did she last feed? And I was like, oh, when she was born, like 6 hours ago. She latched for 45 minutes. And they were like, how can you leave her that long without feeding? And I was like, well, I didn't know, because obviously I don't know, like no one told me, like they just left us on our own, so obviously I'm not going to know that I need to feed her every however long. She was sleeping, and the reason I believe she was sleeping was because I had a pethidine injection, which can make babies sleepy post birth. So she was sleeping, so I'm just like, baby's sleeping, we're like, as I say, processing the fact that we just gave birth. And I didn't know that she needed feeding, so they're like, you need to wake her up and latch her now. And I was like, suddenly I just felt this anxiety just fall over me, because I was like, oh my gosh, my daughter might be hungry, I'm not feeding her. So that was like my first experience of like breastfeeding, I mean like post the first latch. And for me, I was like, I feel under so much pressure to do this, like no one told me, so how am I supposed to know? And then from that experience, I wanted to be basically out of the ward straight away, because I was like, I don't want to be put under pressure to breastfeed or to get my baby to latch, to do all these things, because I knew that being in stressful situations affects your milk supply, and it also affects like the bonding time with your baby, and I really wanted that to be good. So when they came in and was like, you need to latch her straight away, I woke her up and I tried to latch her on. Bearing in mind, I also had stitches. I was very sore. The hospital bed was like rock. It was like a rock. So I found it very hard to actually get comfortable to latch her on because I couldn't sit up like how I'm sitting now. It was too sore. So basically I tried to latch her on. She wouldn't latch. And then they were like, you need to do 3 feeds, show us 3 feeds. So every time she feeds, you need to call us and we'll assess the latch. And then once we see that she's latched well, then you can go home. Because I was like, I would want to go home. I do not want to stay here overnight for many different reasons. So I did as they said. And when she was first about to latch, she wouldn't latch, and I kid you not, so it was my husband, myself, the baby like here trying to latch, and then like 3 women standing over me trying to see how this baby's latching. And they're like, you need to call this person, not me as in, they're like, calling this person, they're gonna help you. And I just felt so overwhelmed and stressed. And as soon as they left, she latched on, she had a feed, and then I fulfilled their requirements of 3 feeds, and the latch was fine. They said the latch was fine, everything was fine, and then we were discharged home that night. But I had an experience which really made me very annoyed. So I basically, before I was about to leave, they were like, there's this person who came in, I think she was in charge of the ward or whatever, and she was like, we normally keep women overnight. And I was like, well, I want to go home. But I was so stressed out basically because the ward is really loud and I just wanted to protect my mental space. I had been in labour for basically 2.5 days, hadn't slept, hadn't ate, and I was right by the door. So every time someone opened and shut the door, I couldn't sleep because the bed was hard. I was right by the door. There was just so many things that were affecting my mental health, and I knew that this is what I needed to protect in these first crucial hours to make sure I can bond with my baby, to get her to latch and feed and do all these things that they say you need to do. So I was like, I really want to go home. And she was like, and I was saying like, I'm sore, and she was like, well, if you stayed overnight then I can show you how to latch. And I'm like, why can't you just show me now? Like, obviously I know they have things to do, but I felt like that was not needed. Like, if you stay overnight then I can show you ways to latch your baby. How is that helpful to me? Anyways, I decided that I wasn't going to stay overnight, and before I was leaving she was like, so what other methods are you going to use to feed your baby if you run into trouble? And I was like, by this point I was so emotional. I was like, I don't know what she's talking about. But in the end we got there, and basically she wanted to know if I had any backup methods at home, which I did. And I did bring to the hospital little bottles of Aptamil ready-made, so I could feed her in case something happened and I couldn't. So I had those at home, so in case she didn't latch, obviously she wasn't going to go hungry, there was milk here ready for her to be fed. Anyways, so we get home now, and it was fine. Like, it was long, I'm not gonna lie, long, exhausting and tiring the first 2 days because the baby cluster feeds to up your milk supply, and I was exhausted, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I feel like the first day, full day we were at home, she fed forever. Like, it felt like I was feeding her all day long, but that's what they do. And then your milk supply comes in, and then you get boobs that are like 4 times the original size that you were. So when that happened, I was feeling like really engorged, and by engorged it basically means like your breasts basically feel like they're about to explode, and they're really rock solid hard. So my milk came in, I was really happy with that. It was like flowing in abundance, and she had a really good weight gain from when she was born to day 5. She was born at 8:11, and by day 5 she was 9 pounds 3 ounces. So that was like a record. So I'm like, this is amazing. So I was like, I'm feeling great, my body's doing what it should, feeding our baby, this is fabulous. By 2 weeks, this is when everything changed, in the sense that there was one night where she basically fed all night, and I didn't know what was wrong. We were both very exhausted, and she was crying all the time, non-stop, and it was just extremely exhausting. By the morning, we had only had 40 minutes sleep, and that was when my mental health took a turn for the worse. And it was, I remember like texting, I think my mum was, I can't remember if my mum had done like a night shift, so I called her, but she was sleeping, and I was like, I can't do it anymore, like I can't breastfeed anymore, like I basically want to die. Because no, I knew before that I had a baby that sleep was a big thing for me, and if I don't get any sleep, then my mental health just dips. And this all happened very quickly. It was like the day before I was like recording a video, bouncing, happy, and then the next day I was feeling like I didn't want to be here anymore. And that was a really, really tough space to be in, because whoa, I haven't felt that low in a long time. It was really hard to be in that space, and there was a lot of emotions that came with it, like I just want to feed my baby, how am I going to do this, I can't do it anymore, I don't want to be here anymore. And I didn't want to give her formula, and for me it was because I had this instinct in my head that if I gave her formula that something would happen, and this proved to be true, and I'll tell you what happened. So I had to end up giving her formula because I needed to sleep, and because I had basically been feeding her all night that night, and she kept screaming and crying, nothing worked. So my mother-in-law came over to like relieve us, thank God, and I hadn't showered, I hadn't ate, so by this point I lost my appetite. I was still bleeding, like postpartum lochia. I hadn't ate, hadn't drank. I don't know how my body was still producing milk, but it was, and I just think that's actually so amazing. Not that I'm not glorifying not eating and not have like that space. I'm glorifying the fact that my body was still able to produce milk, although I was going through a very bad crisis. So I basically called 111. I was talking to this woman for an hour, like saying how guilty I feel, that I can't look after my baby, and that I don't want to give her formula, and that I feel so bad, and she's missing. I basically left the house and went somewhere else, and I was like, what if she noticed that I'm not there? What if she's hungry and crying? Oh, it was really, really hard. And obviously with the hormones postpartum as well, it was hard. It was hard, full stop. Like there's no other way to put it than it was hard. And because I was breastfeeding, it helped me to lose weight. But during that time where I had like a 2-week period basically where I was recovering from this crisis, I had lost my appetite. I had to force myself to eat because I wasn't hungry. Obviously if you lose your appetite, I wasn't drinking enough. I was withering away, and everyone was like, you look so great, and inside I was literally dying. So that's also another lesson. When you see women postpartum, or anyone in any stage of their life, just because they look skinny, quote unquote skinny, don't assume that they've got it all together, because I seem to not have it all together, and it was a real struggle. But anyways, after that night I did get some support from the infant feeding team, and they helped me to sort of check her latch. And I feel like there's so much to share. They basically helped me to check her latch. But before this, when my milk had come in, I still have quite a fast letdown, and my daughter was like choking on when the milk was coming out because it was coming out so fast. So I was recommended to get a nipple shield, and so I got these nipple shields, and they were amazing. I was like, great, my daughter's not choking anymore. It's basically like a piece of silicone that you attach to your breast, and it acts like a straw. And I was told to use this nipple shield for as long as I needed to. However, then when I saw someone from the infant feeding team after I had that crisis, they were like, yeah, it's only meant for short-term use, because then your baby won't be able to latch properly, because they'll be latched onto your breast without the nipple shield. Then you have to go about weaning them off the nipple shield. And I was like, wait, but this other person told me that I can use it for as long as I need. So why is there so many discrepancies here between what people from the same team are saying. So that stressed me out, and I continued to use the nipple shields because her latch wasn't great and it was making my breast really sore and itchy, and not itchy, just really sore and dry. And I talked about this in my postpartum must-haves video. I basically had to switch like my breast pads because the Lancino like disposable ones were ripping my nipples off and they were already dry. It was just, I felt really angry because I was getting like different information from different people, and I felt like that made my journey harder as a first-time mum. So when the lady from the infant feeding team came and told me, oh, nipple shields are only meant for short-term use, I then tried to start to wean her off of it. And so sometimes I'd feed without the nipple shield, and then sometimes I would. But I just basically was trying my hardest to get her off the nipple shields. And sometimes it was obviously really hard because she was like choking when my milk came out. But they were like, keep going, she will basically adjust to the flow of the milk. And I was then told that instead of suggesting nipple shields for a fast letdown, you should just change your position, like the position that you're feeding. So obviously the traditional feeding positions like this, they're like, try lying down, try having her up. It was just, I felt like I just wanted to give up breastfeeding. However, I could not, and this is why the instinct that I had regarding formula. So the night, taking it back to the night where I had that crisis, we gave her formula because they were like, you need to rest, you need to get some sleep. I felt like I was on the verge of having a breakdown. Like, I was in a space, as I said, that I'd never been before, and it was a really dark space. So it's like, okay, fine, just let her have the formula. And obviously I felt like, because I needed help, I wasn't really in the place to be like, don't give my baby formula, because there was nothing else to give her, and I couldn't breastfeed because I was hating breastfeeding at that point. I just wanted to stop and give up straight away. So gave her the formula, and then lo and behold, I'm going to put a picture here. The next day she broke out in the worst rash all over her face. It was all red, her skin was peeling, and that for me confirmed what I knew in my head, was that she was going to be, either she's lactose intolerant or she's got CMPA, and I'm not sure yet. And basically I'm lactose intolerant, and when I was pregnant I didn't really eat any dairy products because I'm lactose intolerant, and also I can tolerate, or I'm lactose intolerant, but I can have bits and bobs and be okay, and then other times I'm not okay. So I base that on whether or not I want to feel symptoms or not. However, when I got pregnant also, like towards the end of my pregnancy, I had really bad heartburn if I ate any dairy, so I stopped eating it altogether. And something just told me like, she's gonna react to this, and she did, and I felt absolutely horrible. But anyways, I decided to cut out dairy altogether, and her skin cleared up, it's glowing, showing, but that was also really hard. So I can't, people were just like, oh, try formula, why don't you give her formula, it'll be easier for you. And it turned out that it wasn't easier. You can get prescription formula for babies who have whatever it is. I don't know if she's got CMPA or she's lactose intolerant. These are two completely different things. But I decided to just cut dairy out as I was doing that anyways. I basically, and I think now looking back in hindsight, at that 2-week mark where we had a horrible night, I had basically been eating I'm laughing now, but I wasn't laughing at the time. I'd been eating these brownies, and I was just indulging. I was eating brownies, ice cream, and so I deserved to after doing what I'm doing. But I think that's what actually had her screaming up non-stop. And I was feeding her more and more. Obviously, she was taking in more dairy. And I was like, what's wrong? Like, why is she screaming all this? But it was the dairy, I think, that was making her scream like that. And obviously, babies suck the breast for comfort. So she kept sucking. And obviously, the more of that milk that she drank, the more uncomfortable she was becoming, and that's why she was crying. But I didn't know that at the time. So yeah, I just it's been a hard journey, and I'm sorry if this video is very chaotic, but that's basically what it was. It was absolute chaos, and I'm happy that things are more settled now. I think I'm going to make a part 2 video, so I'll leave us here with, we'll stop on the, I don't even know, I've lost my train of thought. We'll stop on like after seeing the infant feeding specialist, and they helped me with different positions, so we'll stop there and then I'll do a part 2. So I'll see you in part 2.